Hello, my name's Michelle Anderson. I have been a professional clarinetist and teacher for over 30 years, and today I'm trying out a couple of ligatures for clarinet made by BG. And what I would like to do is share my thoughts on these with you. I think they're both really good ligatures, but we have two different designs and then three different kinds of metal plating. And it's always interesting to see, is there really much difference when you go from a silver to a gold ligature? What difference do the various design features make? And maybe this will just help you when you're choosing a ligature that would work best for your clarinet setup. So first of all, I do want to say that everyone's mouthpiece and mouth are a little bit different. And I've helped many of my own students here in my home studio choose ligatures, and it really does seem like they all respond a little bit differently. So if you have the luxury to sit down and try out many ligatures, as I'm going to be doing today, it might help you find the best one for you and your instrument. If you don't have that luxury, at least I can give you my impressions of the different kinds of metal and different designs, and that might make it easier for you to decide what you think is going to work best for you. So the two designs that I have in hand today, one is called the Tradition. So I'm just going to hold that up. It's an inverted ligature, meaning that the screw is going on the back side of the reed. In general, most of the high-end ligatures do have the screw on the back. And what that does is it takes some of the weight away from the reed, because of course we want the reed to vibrate very, very freely to help give us our warmest tone quality. So that's always a desirable feature. If we look really closely at the inside of this ligature, we can see there's a little bit of a lining there. Feels to me like a soft cork lining, although as not being a ligature maker, I'm not exactly sure what that is. But it gives one very soft surface, but a very small surface to hold the reed on. So I find it holds the reed quite securely, but still lets the reed vibrate. So let's perhaps, before I even get to the features of the duo, I'm going to just play on this ligature, the Tradition, which is, I think, a medium-priced ligature, and just give you my impressions of it. I'm going to try it in all three types of metal. Now, I'm going to start with the rose gold finish, and I'll just say right off the bat, I have had a chance to play these three, and this is the one that seems to work best for me on my instrument. I have sat down with my students here and had them try it, and to be honest, all three finishes each kind of place first in some people's contests. So can't really say there's an overall winner, although I think maybe slightly more people like the rose gold than the silver and the regular gold. What I'm going to do is just play, I'll do a short excerpt from the Vapor Clarinet Concertino so that I'm kind of playing the same exact piece of music as I go through each ligature, and as much as you can hear the sound quality through your own computer, you might get a sense of what the differences in sound are. So in my observation on the rose gold one, it does have a really nice resonance, but perhaps still a little bit darker than some of the other metals. So here we go on the Tradition ligature. Now, whenever I'm testing a ligature, I like to play high notes, and that was nicely in the high range. And I also like to try articulating. Sometimes a ligature may feel good and sound good, but when you try tonguing, it doesn't respond well. So we also want to do a little bit of tonguing just to see how that feels. Yeah, to me, this actually lets the reed respond quite nicely. I find when I'm placing the Tradition on my reed, it actually works best if I place it a little bit on the higher side. That might be just me and my setup, but if you are testing these ligatures out, that might be something to consider. All right, I'm going to switch now to the regular gold plating. I'm really trying to hold my reed in exactly the same place so that we have a fair comparison here as we move between the different metal types. I'll go ahead and play exactly the same thing that I just played. My quick impression, switching from the rose gold finish to the gold finish, is that this one's a little bit brighter, and it depends on the sound that you're going for. This one has a little bit more projection. For the type of playing I do, I slightly like the rose gold, although there's not a huge difference between those two. And now I'm going to switch to the silver plating. Again, I'll try and keep my reed in exactly the same place, which makes it more of a fair comparison. And let's see what the silver finish sounds like on the same passage of music. So right now this one's sounding very good too. Now, to be honest, there's not a huge difference between the different finishes here. What we have is a well-designed ligature that basically responds quite well. It articulates quite well, but the different metals do have a slightly different flavor. And based on what I just heard, I would say that the silver one sounds quite nice. The gold has, in this case, maybe the most sparkle and resonance, and the rose gold on my setup has nice resonance, but perhaps is a little bit darker sounding. They're all quite similar to each other, but that's what I notice in the different kinds of metals. It is interesting, though, that the finish does make a difference to the sound. And so it's kind of fun to try that out, trying to keep everything else the same piece of music, same reed position, and that's what we observe. All right, I'm going to take a look at the BG Duo ligature, which is a little bit more complex design. So the Duo ligature is actually designed for clarinet or alto sax. This is also an inverted ligature, meaning that the screw is going to go on the back side of the mouthpiece. We can see there's two little dents here, two thin rails that hold the reed on, and then inside of the ligature, I'll hold this up to the camera so you can see it, there are two little rubber rails on the back side. It's called a floating rail. This whole mechanism here kind of moves around a bit that allows the ligature to really only be holding on to the clarinet on the very front and the very back, and the sides are really not putting much pressure on the mouthpiece. So I imagine the theory there is, again, to let the reed vibrate as well as it possibly can. So I'm going to try all three of the finishes for you. The first one that I have on here is the gold finish, and we'll see how those three different finishes stack up. Now, again, what I did notice about this ligature when I put it on, that once the ligature is in place, it's very, very secure. And this could be really handy if you're an orchestral clarinetist and you have to take your mouthpiece off and move back and forth between a B flat and an A clarinet. I think it's quite unlikely that you're going to knock your reed loose, and that's a real benefit of it. This does mean if you're the type of player who kind of moves your reed around a bit throughout your rehearsal, which I tend to do, that you just have to be a little bit more careful about loosening it, moving it into the right place, and then ensuring it's back where you want it again. But overall, I think having it be quite secure is a nice feature to have. So here is the gold ligature. I'll try the articulated arpeggio, so just so you can hear how it responds if I'm tonguing. So it's nice. I'm going to compare the three finishes as I did with the tradition ligature, but just an observation between the duo ligature and the tradition. To me, the duo adds a whole extra layer of warmth and resonance and also depth of tone. So if I were myself choosing between the two ligatures, I do prefer the duo as far as its overall response. Now let's just compare the different metal finishes to see what we think of that. So this was the gold one. I'm going to take that one off. I'm going to put on the rose gold one, which in the tradition is the one that I felt sounded best on my clarinet setup. on a quick comparison, before I even get to the tonguing, between the rose gold and the gold, they're very similar, but there's a little bit more darkness in this sound, at least to my ears here in my studio. So on my setup, I slightly prefer this rose gold one. Let's try the articulation and see if we hear any difference there. I would say all of these ligatures have quite a nice responsive free-blowing articulation, which is really important to me when I'm selecting a ligature. So I'm not noticing much difference in the articulation as I switch facings, but I am noticing a slight difference in the tone quality and the sound quality that comes out of the ligature. I'm going to try the silver finish, and again, I'm really trying to hold my reed in exactly the same position so that we're getting a fair comparison of how the different metal finishes affect our tone quality. So this is the silver. Now I will try some of the articulated arpeggios. So to my ears, the silver one has perhaps a bit more projection than the gold one. It's a little bit louder. For my setup and the way I play, I actually prefer the rose gold, which is maybe not quite as loud or as resonant, but still a very nice sound. But this has a great sound. When I was having some of my students test out these various ligatures, I had one or two students who naturally had more of a smaller sound quality, and what they really wanted to bring into their sound was a bigger sound, and the silver ligature sounded fantastic with them. Again, as I said, some people sounded best on the gold, and many people sounded best on the rose gold. So it really does vary from person to person. The differences between the metal types are subtle, but there is a difference. If you have a chance to try them out, you certainly can. If not, hopefully my impressions here just give you a little bit of a sense of how they work. So if I were to give you just my own opinion, and your opinion might be totally different when you try them, I would say that between the two ligatures, they're both very good. I think the duo ligature offers just a little bit more depth of sound and resonance compared to the tradition, but they're both good ligatures. As far as the metal finishes go, in general, the silver seems to give a more direct, brighter projecting sound. The gold, regular gold finish, mellows that out a little bit. And so it's hard to describe sound in word, but I would say a little bit mellower, although still quite resonant. And then the rose gold perhaps makes the sound a little bit darker and still very resonant. All three of these metals on these designs really do have nice projection and nice resonance to them. I like the way they stay securely on the mouthpiece, and I also like the way articulation comes out quite easily with these different finishes. So hopefully that gives you some idea of the features of these different ligatures. When you're testing ligatures yourself, I recommend that you try playing loud notes and soft notes and low notes and very high notes. Definitely try slurring. And those two quick passages I picked featured one that was kind of soft and high, and another one that was louder and lower with fast tonguing. So on a really quick comparison, it does allow me to test out lots of different aspects of my playing to see how I like these ligatures. So that's the BG Tradition and the BG Duo Clarinet ligatures. I think they're worth testing out for yourself to see what you think of them.